Hey y'all, how you doing? I hope you're surviving the holidays and having a good time. I've been enjoying some time with my kids. Everybody's getting along. We're having a good time. I almost hate to say it out loud. I feel like that's going to jinx it. But we've been doing some fun stuff and I'm learning to enjoy the little small moments of the day. And it's really making a big difference in my overall mood. So I hope you're able to experience some goodness as well. Now, today we're going to talk about one of my least favorite seasons of the year in a corporate setting of review time. It usually happens towards the end of the year, December, January, February, kind of depends on the cadence of your company. But I want to give you kind of 2 tips as an employee, 2 tips as a manager, and then 2 tips around the compensation stuff to make this a little less painful, a little less annoying, a little less of like the corporate BS we kind of have to go through to actually help you get something out of it. So, fair warning, I'm not going to talk about, tips and tricks of giving specific and actionable feedback and removing the biases and all that jazz. Like, there's a lot of that out there. Go find it. I'm sure your company has some training, all for it. But today I want to talk a little bit more of how do you overcome some of the reality of the frustration that comes with yearly reviews, because they are biased. No matter what we do, we are human with innate biases in us. There's recency bias. Some managers don't even look at feedback other people are providing for you before they enter in their feedback on you. Like, there's just a million problems with the whole system, but I am pro feedback. I do think it's helpful. I personally just don't love the formal operational part of a yearly review. It feels very check the boxy, and that's just not my jam. Okay, but if you're an employee that's going through this process, here's kind of my 2 key things I would offer to you to focus on and think about this year while we check the boxes. Okay. The first is I want you to keep in mind the most important thing about this feedback and why I do think feedback is helpful. I don't think it actually matters the feedback other people are giving you. Remember, I talk a lot about it's none of your business what other people think about you. It's telling us way more about them and their brain and where they're at than what is true for you. No one can actually be the judge of you except you. And you're probably your own worst critic. So be nice to yourself. But I do think other people's feedback is important. And here's why. Again, it's not what they're actually saying. The reason I think it's important is because of the response you have to it. And that is very telling and very important to know. Because if someone gives feedback you don't agree with, it doesn't really bother you. You don't feel defensive. You don't get annoyed. You're just like, I disagree. Agree to disagree. And we move on. It's very low emotion. You don't think about it. It doesn't kind of stew. It's not like we poured lemon juice on your paper cuts. It's not a big deal. It's okay for people to be wrong about you. But what I want you to pay attention to is the feedback that stings a little, where your initial impression is to be defensive, because what that's telling us is there's something in that piece of feedback, whether it's what they said or not. I'm not saying that, but there's something in that piece of feedback that you agree with isn't how you want to be. If not, it wouldn't sting. It wouldn't bother you. There wouldn't be an emotional response. It might even be like 2% agreeing. That's okay. It's really helpful to know, because that's telling us what are the things we want to go and work on as a human to keep growing and evolving and being a better person. So let me give you a couple examples. Let's say you get some feedback that says you need to work on your executive presence, that you tend to ramble on, you're not clear, you don't appear confident when you don't know something. If you get some feedback around that and you feel defensive and your initial response is to start defending yourself and explaining why maybe in this scenario someone provided that feedback, it's like, maybe you didn't sleep well the night before and so-and-so leader, they're always pushing back on this and they never like the answer we give them, even though it's the reality, right? If your initial response is to get defensive, that's telling us you're in fight or flight mode. Something was triggered in you that doesn't feel safe because you agree with them. Defense is the first act of war. We're not at war. We're especially not at war with ourselves. We just want to know, oh, that stung. Something came up for me there. Let's say hypothetically you agree a sliver of that feedback that you do tend to get a little defensive and frustrated when people don't understand you or they don't agree with you or you're getting a lot of questions, you're getting a lot of pushback. Guys, that's a total normal response, by the way. But let's say you do agree with that, which is why it's kind of bothering you a little bit. Okay, what do you want to do? That person's feedback on the specific situation doesn't matter. It's already happened. It's in the past. We can't go back and change it. Okay, let's just acknowledge, maybe this year we want to work on being a little less defensive and trying to figure out how can we be more curious when people do disagree with us or we are getting a lot of questions. That's really helpful. That's really good information. That's telling you, this is something I do want to work on as a human being. Love it. Feedback from other people is really helpful when you pay attention to how it makes you feel. Let me give you another example. Maybe you got some positive feedback, which we tend to skim over, and I hate, but I do the same. Saying something like you were able to help unblock the team, you really helped them with a launch. Maybe the principal engineer wasn't showing up and wasn't engaging and wasn't helping unblock the team with a QA problem you had, and someone was highlighting a strength you had of your ability to step in and help and align the team and communicate up and really lead. Again, I want you to pay attention to how does that feedback make you feel. It's important to pay attention, not just to the negative feedback, but to the positive feedback as well. Again, if your initial response is to get a little defensive in that you try to justify it of like, oh, it was nothing, it wasn't a big deal, right? Like it was a team effort. If that's your initial response, what it's telling us is a little part of you agrees with something they said. Focus on that. Let it be there. Allow yourself to feel proud and accomplished and valuable. That's so helpful. That's what we're going for. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to how you feel as you're reading other people's feedback. Less on the words, less on the details, and more about how you feel, and then get curious as to why. So for us as individuals, that's my tip number 1. Tip number 2 is I would encourage you to write your feedback as if it's already next year. So when I'm recording this, it's 2023. So instead of writing your feedback for this past year of 2023, write it as if it's December of 2024, as if it's already happened. Assume you reached your goals, you grew, you got better at some things, you're still struggling with some things. Like, get specific. What did you do? And I want you to keep this in mind as you work. The reason this is really helpful is a couple reasons. The main one is you are more likely to accomplish and get there because you're giving your brain real problems to go after and solve. We're not worried about, oh, how am I going to get through January and planning things out for the whole year. We're worried about how did I actually deliver on those projects? How did I figure out how to be less defensive and more confident in front of executives? And your brain's going to work to solve those problems, even subconsciously. When we're focused and very clear on what we've delivered, when we imagine we're writing this a year ahead of time, that's us being our future selves today. And that future person is going to influence who you are today instead of the other way around, which is more likely to get you to where you want to go. So let me give you an example. I did this for myself. Now, I work for myself. I am my own 360 feedback. I am biased for myself. I'm very aware of that. But as I was thinking, okay, if I was writing a review for myself and I'm writing it a year in advance, what would I want it to say? Okay, so here's kind of an example for me. I would talk about my strengths. My strengths for this past year of 2024 were over delivering for my clients. for continuing to educate myself to become a better coach. My strengths were on being present for each of my clients on each of our coaching calls and figuring out ways to customize and help each of them individually, right? I want those to be my strengths. My accomplishments were that I launched monthly training topics to my members in my coaching program. So every month we were diving deep on a different problem. My accomplishments were that through this change and diving deep on these different topics, I was able to help hundreds of clients reach their career goals even faster, right? That's what I accomplished in 2024. I have a wait list of clients because I've grown so much faster than I projected. Because I'm helping people get results. It's working. They're loving it. They want more of it. They're telling people about it. More people are finding out about these tools and resources and getting what they want. How did I grow in 2024? I said no to more of the random requests that I get that didn't necessarily align with the goals of where I wanted to go. I didn't work past 3 p.m. on days when my kids came home from school. I delivered things faster and I didn't worry about it being as good as I could possibly make it. I went and delivered it and then I went back and updated what I needed to along the way. That's how I grew in 2024. What are the opportunities I'm still working on? I'm still probably trying to figure out how do I spend less time worrying about what is the quote unquote right topic or right next thing to dive into to help my clients with. I'm spending less time looking at the data and optimizing things kind of in silos. And I'm looking at the bigger picture and trying to find ways to make it more simple to help more people even faster in an easier, fun way. Right? So again, I'm just trying to think this is where I want to be by the end of 2024. As I keep my mental head in that space, now I'm going to go to work and make sure I'm going to get those results. Okay. So my 2 tips for you as an individual as you're doing your kind of yearly review is 1, pay attention to how you feel as you read feedback from other people. And 2, write your review for the next year. Now, if you're a manager or if you're a leader and work with people, this still applies to you. But if you're a manager that's going to be providing feedback to your employees, tip number 1 is remember the purpose of this. It is not to check boxes, okay? I'm guessing you know how to manage this system. Your goal in providing feedback and a review to your employee is to help them grow. That's it. To help them keep progressing in whatever direction they want to go. So I want you to ask yourself, the feedback you're providing, is it helping? Or are you simply regurgitating and rephrasing feedback that's already there? Is it adding value? So let me give you an example. Here's some feedback I used to give that I don't actually think is very helpful, but the last team I was on at Amazon were amazing humans, and I still love them and keep in contact with so many of them to this day. And a lot of them were really good at their jobs, and it was hard for me to be like, you should go work on this thing. And so I would give feedback that isn't very helpful of things like, I really want to see you think bigger. I want you to show up more. I want you to lead more. I want you to share more of your goodness with the team. Right? Like I essentially wanted them to realize they were doing a good job and to be more of them. But as I look through it through this lens of like, that's not actually helpful. As their leader, as their manager, not great feedback. Keep being you. I'm like, well, okay. I haven't woken up as anyone else yet. More helpful feedback might be something like, be the leader in every room you're in. Share your gut instinct. It's usually right, and it will help you hone that instinct the more you share it. Say no. Protect your time and emotional energy. Ask for more. Expect more from others. Call people out in an appropriate way, but stop doing the work for other people that are lazy or missing their deadlines. Hold them accountable to it. Right? Like it's just a little bit more specific. It's a little bit more helpful than like, keep going. You're doing a good job. Or here's another piece of feedback that I don't think is super helpful is it's things like make sure you double check your work if this employee had a lot of QA issues this year. Okay. And as your manager, you're probably expanding on it. But essentially, the message is make sure to double check your work. I'm like, well, duh. Okay. If they do really have a quality problem with their work, telling them to double check is like putting a Band-Aid on the problem, right? So give them feedback that's going to help them grow. Remember, they need to feel safe to make mistakes. And if they're worried because they know they're making a lot of mistakes and leadership is aware of it, they're probably freaking out, which is more likely to cause them to make mistakes. So how do you provide them feedback that's going to help them feel calmer and safer and know to do things like double check your work, right? That's like common sense. If you have to tell your employee this, you have a different problem. So instead of giving that feedback, more helpful feedback might be something like, really be an owner of your project. That means you've got to take breaks and walk away from it. You may need to double check your work, but you need to do whatever needs to get done to finish it, to accomplish it, to be proud of it, to put your name on it, and to do your very best. That might mean sometimes you need to say no. Sometimes you need to ask for help, right? Like give them feedback that's going to help set them up for success, not just like pound them down on things they know they're already struggling with. Okay, so that's tip number one as a manager. Make sure what you're telling them is actually going to help them. Okay. And the second thing I would offer to you as a manager as you go through this review cycle, what people notice in others is telling us a lot about them. So when I was at Amazon, as an employee, we would send out requests to other employees to provide feedback on us, and our managers and other leaders would be assigned to provide feedback for us. Okay. What I loved as a manager is I could see what feedback other people on my team were providing about each other on the team. And it was so helpful for me to know where was that employee's brain? Where was their mind? Yes, they're giving me feedback about a different employee, and I will take that into consideration as I look at the 360 feedback. But it's also so helpful for me to know, how do I help that employee that's giving the feedback grow? Let me give you a couple examples. Let's say you get some feedback from someone complaining about another employee, saying they don't show up to their one-on-ones, they don't really care about their team, right? I saw this in a couple instances as I was managing managers, and their employees were complaining about the presence or lack thereof of that particular leader. Okay. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying there aren't some things we need to do to make sure managers are showing up and caring about their team. All in for that feedback. But it's also really helpful for me to know and to be aware that employee is feeling underappreciated. There's also probably some beliefs in that employee's brain of their manager is required to be successful. So again, it's just really helpful. And I like to get curious about it and talk with that employee. Not that their feedback's wrong, not that they're entitled to their opinion, and not that they shouldn't be asking for more from their leader. But I like to help just check in with that employee to make sure they know they have every opportunity to be successful, even if their leader is falling short. And I want to make sure they know that and are feeling supported in that way, right? So what other people noticed in others tells us a lot about them. Here's another example. Maybe the feedback you see come through on someone else is maybe hypothetically, once upon a time, I got this feedback. I don't know. It's feedback along the lines of needs to be more professional in presentations with the team in the work they're doing. We have a lot to do and need to stay focused and driven. This is not social hour. Shocker. My whole life, I've always been that person that's like, talks a lot. But here's the thing. It's not to say there weren't times where I did need to be more professional, right? There's a time and a place. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that feedback and there weren't things I could keep improving on. But what this is also telling me about the person that's providing the feedback is that they're taking things very serious. They're probably feeling a lot of pressure and stress and anxiety, and they don't see there's a place for both, for professionalism, for delivering results, for being focused and driven and having fun. And that's okay. That person may not want to, but it's helping me understand, how do I best work with that person and meet them where they are, and also maybe help support them to not feel so stressed and so much pressure, to take things a little bit lighter while they help me take things a little more seriously. We both bring different avenues to the table. We both want that, but it's just helpful to know, where's the other person coming from. Okay. So as the employee, pay attention to how you're feeling when you hear feedback from other people. Write your feedback ahead of time for next year. As a manager, make sure the feedback you're providing is actually going to help them grow, and notice what it's telling you about the person providing the feedback and how you can help them as well that next year. The last thing I want to talk a little bit about is compensation. Kind of the rumblings I'm hearing from people and through the rumor mills and online things is compensation conversations aren't going to be great this year. A lot of companies are still trying to be really safe and conservative and may not be offering as much money, as much stock, as many promotions. It may not be what it has been in the past. And as an employee, that's a hard thing to hear. And as a manager, it's an even harder thing to deliver. I remember being an employee and getting rave reviews. Like, I was rated top tier, which at the time was like the best you could get rated in your yearly performance. And it was all these great things and wonderful feedback and all the things I was doing well. And then they came back with compensation of like a 1.5% increase on my base salary. And I was like, that doesn't even offset inflation for the past year, right? And it kind of felt like a slap in the face. It was like, we love it. You're doing amazing. You're above everyone. We think you're so great. Keep it up. And we're not going to compensate you and reward you for it. Okay. Here's what I would offer to you. If you find yourself in this compensation place, whether that's you as an employee or you as a manager giving the compensation conversation, and you know it's not great and not going to go over well. One, it's okay. Let it be not great and not go over well. Tell the whole truth. We don't need to hide anything, right? We're going to be as transparent as we legally can. But as an employee, have a plan. Go into your compensation conversation hoping for the best, but also know hope is not a strategy. So have a strategy. If it comes back and the compensation is not what you want, have a plan. Ask for specific things. There's other things you can ask for from your employee outside of just compensation. Ask to be a lead on that next project. Ask to have person A, B, and C report to you by the end of Q2. Ask for an extra week of vacation. Ask to go on a conference. Ask them to pay to hire a career coach. There's so many other ways to do this. And I mean this, and I want to help you because I do think everyone needs to have a coach. If you do not have a coach, you're making this harder on yourself. So what I've done is I've created kind of a one-pager that you can change a few custom fields into and give it to your manager to ask them to reimburse you to hire a career coach. Selfishly, I'd love it to be me, but I also know I'm not for everyone. So feel free to use it for whatever coach you want. But if you go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/expense coaching, I'll put a link in the show notes. But if you go there, download this one pager that I recommend you use to give to your leadership to ask them to pay for coaching. It has some data and statistics and insights into what you're going to get out of it. And hopefully I've helped do a little bit of the heavy lifting for you. Okay. But as an employee, go in with a specific ask, a specific plan. The worst thing that could happen is they say no. But if you don't even ask, it's for sure a no, right? What's the saying? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Go ask. Go ask. As a manager, if you know this compensation conversation isn't going to go well, think about what else can you provide for this employee. They're allowed to also be disappointed in the compensation. Let them. They're allowed to be excited about it. I hope that's the best case. But if you assume they're not going to love the compensation question, tell them the whole truth, let them be disappointed, and really focus on what else can you provide for them. Maybe you recommend them for some advanced training in your company. Maybe you're going to find them a senior executive mentor and help them get some one-on-one time. Maybe you're going to have them be your TA. Maybe you're going to let them lead the next project. Maybe you're going to send them home early once a week and just give them some time off. Maybe you're going to start doing legitimately fun, not virtual online, but like fun team building monthly activities. Maybe you're going to offer to have the company pay for them to get a career coach, right? You could proactively do this for your employees as well. But get specific. How else can we show that we care and support and are invested in growing our employees when our hands are tied from a compensation standpoint? I promise you it's out there. I promise you there's ways to do it. It doesn't always have to be big things. Bring in coffee for the team once a week. Like little things can make a difference to show that you're trying and you're doing what you can based on the tools and resources given to you as their leader. Okay? So I'm sending you all the love and I wish you a quick and painless review cycle and process. Follow all those best practices, but practice applying some of these things that we've talked about today. And again, if you don't have a coach, you need a coach. There are things going on inside your brain, beliefs that are keeping you stuck, things happening outside of you that you can't see. Just like you can't see your own nose on your own face, you need that external perspective. You need that unbiased person to call you out on things and to help you get unstuck and move forward. And that's what coaching does. It's amazing. Go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/expense coaching and have your company pay for coaching. Every single one of my clients that has used this tool and asked for their manager to reimburse them for coaching, it's worked. I'm pretty sure it's going to work for you too. So go download this resource. You've got nothing to lose. The worst thing that could happen is you get told no. And you're right where you are today. So you're amazing. You got this. We'll talk soon. If what you're learning from this podcast is helping, this is just the beginning. Each week, I offer a limited number of coffee chats so that you and I can connect one-on-one and talk specifically about what's going on for you. You'll leave this call feeling more hopeful and motivated, but I'm also going to teach you a few things to try right away to get unstuck. Space is very limited and these are free, so grab your spot before they're gone. Click the link in the show notes or go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/chat and sign up today. You got this.